And people were like, "Oh, y'all starting tequila? Oh, that's cool, you know, da da da." And my brother, he was kind of getting a little frustrated because people wasn't taking it serious. And I was like, you know what? It don't matter. When they see it, you'll see the difference. And so when we went to Mexico and we started posting pictures from down there in 2020, people was like, "Oh,
Right.
like they really down it. They really doing it." Now here come all the likes. Here come all the friend requests from people I ain't talked to since high school, right? Like now it's like, yeah, like we was really doing it. So then people was just like, wow. So that excited me. That's what I was like, yeah, let's go do something phenomenal. Like I don't want to have my whole life be me working in a cubicle
Right.
until I retire, right? Like, and that was the thing of my life. Like, no, I'm gonna go out there and do something phenomenal.
All right, welcome back to the Liquid Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Monte Burrow. Today, I have a special guest in the building with me. He is one of those tequila guys, and everybody knows tequila is hot right now. So we're going to learn a little bit about this hot tequila that he's working on. But he goes by the name of Donta Henson of Los Hermanos Tequila. Donta, what's going on, man?
What's going on, Monte? Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, I really appreciate you spending some time with us. It's one of those things, when you find somebody in this industry with a passion, it's nothing better than to tap into it and to get a sense of how they got there and, the steps that they took. And hopefully somebody who may be trying to come up in your footsteps or someone who's doing what you're doing, who's looking for some reassurance or just saying, wow, you know what, I've done that, I've been there, okay, I'm good. We can share some of those points with them. So this should be a fun conversation. Yeah. So Dante, let's jump right in. I would love to learn a little bit more about you. We're definitely going to talk about the tequila, and I'm interested in learning a little bit more about tequila. But before we even get into the to that bottle and that liquid, I want to learn a little bit more about you. Let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Pasadena, Maryland. So it's about 20 minutes south of Baltimore. I think around the time of middle school, moved into the city. I lived in Baltimore on and off, like middle school, high school. Ended up finishing my high school career back out here in Glen Burnie. Then after that, I think a year after I graduated, went and joined the Navy. Did 9 years in the Navy. Got out and was living on the West Coast in what 2010, in the middle of the financial crisis. So yeah, that's at a really high level, my background.
Yeah, so look, I don't want to glance over this one part real quick. So you started off, you threw up Baltimore. So I want to know from you. You see the hat, right? You see the hat. Who has the best crab cakes, man?
You know what? People be salty with me. I'm not even. I don't even really eat crab cakes. So
Rut.
let my wife tell it though. My wife's the expert. She says nobody beats Pappas. So I'll
Okay.
take her word on it.
All right. Your wife saved you. 'Cause I was about to say, okay, this interview is over. He doesn't like crab cakes. This interview is over. But no, no. That that you can't go to Baltimore without having any crab cakes. So anybody that's listening that has never been there, if you ever get there, you gotta try the crab cakes. And based on Dante's wife, go to Pappas. So tell him Dante send you and ask for a shot of Los Hermanos when you're in there.
Yes, indeed. So you have to come here and check for that.
Right, right, right. All right, so you said quite a bit, right? So you grew up in Pasadena, kind of floated around a little bit. I heard Navy, I heard the West Coast. So did you go to school in Maryland, or did you go to school outside of Maryland?
So I did all of my, elementary, middle, high school in Maryland.
Uh
It
huh.
was all in between Glen Burnie and Baltimore. Actually, I did all of my school because even when I left the Navy and I came back and I went to college, I went to
Yep.
UMBC. So everything is
UMBC.
local.
And what did you major in at UMBC?
Undergrad was health administration and policy, and then my master's was in health IT.
Health, health, alcohol. Okay, we'll put a footnote there, and definitely want to revisit that as well. Okay, so we got the Navy, we got a bit of a health academic background. What did you do in the Navy? Like, what was your area of focus when you were in the Navy?
Um, Yeah, so in the Navy, for the people who were in around the time I was in, it was called a dispersing clerk, and basically I
Mm.
was got to handle people's pay, right? Like, so everybody on the boat, make sure you got paid on time. You know, you got married, you get your basic allowance for housing, you moving off base. You know, I'm the guy you come see to make sure your pay was straight.
Did you think that your career, once you left the Navy and left undergrad, was going to be in one of those fields, whether it be in healthcare, whether it be in something dealing with finance or accounting or something in the HR space? I'm just curious. What were you thinking coming out?
So going into college, because I'd already, was pretty much a full grown adult with wife and kids, I already knew, like, at that time, when I decided to go back to school, it was 2010, in the middle of financial crisis. At the same time, people remember the Affordable Care Act was just getting passed. And so I was like, okay, healthcare, this legislation looks big. Here is something that's going to be around for a long time, right? And I knew I had the opportunity to get in that field and probably wouldn't get laid off like some of the people in real estate and in, the finance field. So I said, I was too old to go back to school to be a doctor, but I figured I could use my finance background and would be a hospital administrator. And so that's why I chose UMBC, because they, at the time, were, I think, one of two colleges in the whole country that had health administration as a undergrad program.
Mm.
Everyone else had it as a master's. And so, I'm going in thinking I'm going to get this healthcare degree, go work for somebody's hospital, and, work my way up to be an administrator. And it was second to last semester where they said, you got to get an internship before you graduate. And one of my professors was like, oh, Medicare is, we use this in people to Medicare. And I was like, okay, well, I worked for the government for a long time. I knew how to work USA jobs. So I just went and got an internship. And when I got to Medicare, the people there the work was totally different from what I was used to working in the Navy, active duty, and as a Navy civilian. And I was like, whoa, like, okay, I could get used to this. This is something different. And so I got in there in 2014 and never left.
20. So you're still there to this day, since
To this day.
2014. Wow. So that's interesting, right? And I'm really curious about that. So you have this career in the healthcare space, or in the healthcare space, and again, we got this tequila in the background that's probably isn't there just yet. But did you ever think, or had you ever been involved with doing any type of side hustles, or had you ever had any side hustles up until that point?
Um, yeah, I dabbled a little bit back when we were in the Navy. So early 2000s, I think like 2004, I was in Pensacola, right? And I was coming from here. My first duty station was in Jersey, so I still got the East Coast vibe. And when I go to Pensacola, like, there was no place to get mixtapes. The people remember then, everybody was still getting the CDs, and I was like, what? Like, nobody out here has it? All right, so that was my first house. I'm on active duty. I'm buying boxes of mixtapes, having them shipped down to Florida, and I'm selling them, the guys on the job. Then it was later when jerseys came out, same thing. Order jerseys, sure. Like, if nobody else is down here doing it, I would do it. But I've never really had official business, like, or anything. It was just that was a little hustle that I saw Lane that, okay, it's something we can do. It provided a service that people wanted. And that was the extent of the business experience that I had.
All right, Dante. So I typically throw these curveballs a little bit later in these interviews, but you just gave me an alley-oop, so I need to throw the curveball in right now. I heard you talk about mixtapes. Who's your top five?
Oh, my, top five. On the mixtapes, I think Fab is number one. Like, Fab absolutely murders the mixtapes. I think Lil Wayne is two. Jada's three. People don't know, like, the Roots is some amazing work with J. Period. That's my oh man, who else do I like? I'm trying to think from that time. I don't know. At that, other than that, like, not a single artist, but Drama. I gotta give Drama his own lane. Like, Drama just killed it for like 3 or 4 years before he got shut down. So the Gangsta Grills was everything at that time.
So if anybody is listening, you realize and you notice how I asked him for his top five, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. It's something special about being of the culture and knowing the culture. So I agree with you, man. That's a pretty decent top five. That's a pretty decent top five. Okay. So you had a few you had a few side hustles in the mixtape space. Your love or your admiration for entrepreneurism, did that start early on in your life? Did you have anybody that you know were entrepreneurs that you saw as role models, as mentors? Was anybody around you in the space where they owned their own businesses? Just curious as to you know what got you in the position to be interested in entrepreneurship.
Gotcha. So, growing up, I think there were only two people in my family who had their own businesses. Both of them were contractors. One of cousin by blood, the other cousin married into the business, but we weren't really close enough to see what they were doing. But you knew like they had their own businesses, and you knew both of them did really well, but never really got any exposure to what they did. And for me, it was just I was always an adventurous person. Like from the time I was a kid, I was always the one that's going to jump out the window, right, just for the adventure, and you deal with whatever fallout afterwards. But and so it was just like if I ever saw a lane for something that I thought I could do, or which helped me out later in life, if I saw somebody that looks like me doing it, then hey, I probably could do it too. And and if it was something I liked, then I'd try my hand. Like it just wasn't. I wish, honestly, I think we had more exposure to it, but that wasn't something that would stop me. Like, just, again, I was always adventurous, so taking that first step wasn't something that ever held me back.
So you were adventurous, had some ambition, and it sounded like you were a bit of a risk taker, probably calculated risk, but you weren't scared to jump in. Does that sound right?
I wouldn't say calculator. I'm like,
No.
listen, my
Let's
wife
do
will
it.
tell you, I'm not the one for long engagements. Like, I think me and my wife, well, I knew my wife in high school, casually, but by the time we came back as adults, like less than a year in, like we're married, let's go, and
Right.
we move. Like that's how I move.
All right. So let's stick with that for a minute. You see something you want, you get it moving. So let's talk about this tequila a little bit. But before we get into the actual tequila itself, what has your experience been in the alcohol space? Had you ever done anything in the alcohol space besides drinking, of course?
I tell people all the time, had I known how much work it would have been going into this thing, I would have stayed a happy consumer. Like I, I mean, it's a weird space because people see Instagram, right, and people see people with brands, and oh, this is the life you're here, you're there doing, but you don't see the 99.9% of the work that happens that gets you something to post on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the part I always trying to tell people when people kind of tell me like, oh, I'm thinking about starting a brand or this, and I was like, okay, that's cool, but here's what you need to know. Here's what you like. Here's what it's really like. This is what you need to be prepared for. Like, because, as you know, this business is not for the faint of heart. And people always say, yeah, I'm up for it and I can, I'll do whatever. But it's like, yeah, will you really run through that brick wall when the time comes? Right? When this next hurdle comes, are you ready to jump over that to keep your brand moving? So I just think the work, I think people grossly underestimate the work because a lot of people don't have exposure. And me, like me or my brother, like I coming into this business, I didn't know anybody, not even bartenders. I don't know anybody in this business. It was just, one of these things that I just kind of saw it coming, like saw something that was like, this might be something we can do. And just kind of wade my way into this industry.
So I'm trying to put myself in your shoes a bit, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I love sneakers. I want to go start a sneaker. I wouldn't know where to begin. I wouldn't know where to be. I don't know anybody that does designs. I don't know anyone who owns it. Well, actually, I know a couple of people. Back then, I didn't know anybody in that space, so I wouldn't even know where to start. How did you even get started? Like, who? You had to look up something. Was it just Google? Was it YouTube? How did you even figure out the first step?
Yeah. So I'm gonna tell you the answer that I tell my kids every time they come to school work. Everything that you ever want to know is out there online. You just gotta ask the right questions. Like, and that's what it was. When I first got the idea, all right, so to back up a little bit, when we got the idea to do it, what I assumed was that the alcohol space was like soda, right? Like there's 5, 10 soda companies, but there's a million brands. So, okay, it's probably private label. Somebody would probably do private label. So I literally just jumped on Google, okay, private label tequila, not even knowing at the time tequila had to be made in Mexico, right? So I'm Googling all of this, okay, figuring out, all right, people do it, it happens. Okay, well, what's the relationship between a brand and a distributor? I'm googling to I can get all the information that I felt enough that I could ask some intelligent questions, and then I started cold calling
Mm.
people. And luckily, we were in the pandemic, right? So everybody's home, so everybody has time. And I was fortunate enough that people would give me 45 minutes an hour every time I cold call somebody, and I would just pick their
Wow.
brain to get a lot of information. And the next call, I got a little bit more to go on than I had before, and just kept snowballing.
Was it always going to be tequila when you first started doing your research into this industry? Why tequila?
Yeah, it was nothing I was ever considered. So my family, we was drinking tequila. Like that's been my wife's drink of choice for as long as I could remember. Before I knew the difference between the Blanco Reposado and Nejo, she was drinking the Patron Reposado. All I knew was she liked the one in the orange box, right? Like that's all I knew.
Right.
Whatever you want, sure, I would get it. But and the way it came about is that when the lockdowns happened in 2020, right? Like my brother, I think they was telling him he would have work a week on, he would work a week, get a week off. So his weeks off, he would call me because I was already working from home. He was like, "Hey, bro, like, come to the house." All right, cool. And he would bring a bottle of tequila. Me, him, my wife, we would just sit around, trying tequila, and having a good time, telling stories and whatever, just enjoying each other's company. And we just got into this rotation because you remember March of 2020, it's cold outside, everything is closed, people out there fighting over toilet paper, hand sanitizer, right? Like so, it just really wasn't a lot to go outside for. So we just stayed in and we got into this rhythm where over the course of the spring, I think we might have tried like 15 different brands.
Wow.
Just having fun, understanding the difference between the houses, how different people make it, difference between the expressions, all these great things. And so, when we got the idea, it was right. It like nothing else even came to mind. It was just that's what we had knew. That's what we all liked. So, all right, we're gonna do something that we like because the last thing and how I relate it or make sense of the things, like even though I was never in the music business, I've been as a kid growing up, music was my life.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about music I love, all in the industry, who's who, who's where, what labels, all these things. Like kids grew up in the 90s, like this was your thing. Because there was no social media then, like only entertainment we got was from the music. So that authenticity, right? Like you can't come out, saying you're this, you're being that, or whatever, if that's not what you are, what you believe in. So when it came to making a product, we had to do something that we liked, that we genuinely liked, that we had a passion for. Otherwise, like it would have never worked.
So I hear teamwork, I hear the collaboration. So is your wife and your brother, are they partners with you in this venture?
No, not the wife, just me and my brother.
You and your brother? Okay, so she's the taste tester.
Yeah, she's the silent, what I call the unsolid partner.
Now you gotta have
Keep us
those.
on track.
Yeah, you gotta have those. So, wow, man. So I mean, again, I admire that gumption to do that because not too many people are just going to say, this is some great tequila. Let's go start one. So you guys, you all go to start a tequila brand. You realize after I'm sure a couple iterations, okay, wow, it has to come from Mexico and a whole bunch of other things. How did you learn the other pieces that people don't talk about? So most people, like you said, they know the sexy part, but they don't realize not only do you have to get the liquid, you got to source the bottles, right? You got to get different license. You got to, get certain things, especially with you, to import the product over from a compliance. It's a lot of different ins and outs around bringing in a brand, especially an alcohol brand that's imported. Was that again basically going back online, or did you ever find any folks to work with that gave you some insights?
No, I wish. No, I went back
Yeah.
online and basically, I can't remember how I found it, but I found this company
Mm.
called Inkfile. And what they would do is you tell them what industry that you're in and what you're trying to do, and they like you pay them, and they will go out and do all the research and says, "Here's all the licenses and permits you need to get." And so that's how I figured out, everything I needed, regulatory wise to be able to, get it done. But without them, like, oh no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't know anybody. So we would definitely have some. I don't know. Well, I'll take it back. I think, like, I probably could have went to the distillery. It says, okay, you have other brands. How do people get it done or whatever? But no, going in. So, all right, let me actually back up just a little bit because that part
Mm-hmm.
came second. When we initially got the idea to do it, we were sitting on my deck, me, my wife, and my brother, and we got this idea because my brother was really good at
Mm.
influencing people, and so he spent a lot of weeks, telling people about all these different great tequilas that people never heard of, and I'm seeing people go get it right just based off his recommendations. They would go out and buy stuff they never heard, and so it's one thing like if I say, "Hey, Monty, you need to go try this," and you're like, "All right, cool. If I'm out and I see it, I might pick it up, or somebody serve I might try it." As opposed to if I tell you to go get this now, by the end of the night, you're on your way to
Right.
the store to go get it, right? And you sending me pictures of it. That's different. And this is what he was getting, right? Like people were taking pictures of these bottles and they were sending it back to him. So I'm like, oh, like I can see that's something different other than just you recommending stuff. And so when I'm seeing this, I said, okay, bro, like hold on. How many cases you sold for these people? Like you ain't got a t-shirt or nothing. Like we probably could start our own brand and we probably could do something. And my brother laughed, right? Like you're crazy. What the hell do we know about tequila? But I was like, dude, listen. If people are doing it, then we can figure it out too, right? And so I was like, all right, well, look, you know what? Give me some time. Let me go see if this is something viable. Because again, I have no idea what the barrier entry is. Is it low? Is it high? What? So that's when I started doing my research and reaching out, cold calling people, all those things. And then it was like I was calling we call it distilleries around the states at that time, and I was asking them would they taking on new brands. Majority of them said no because they cut their capacity because they switched over to make hand sanitizer. I found one guy in Jacksonville, Florida, who said, "Yeah, I can take you guys on, but you got to go to
Mm.
Mexico to get the juice." And having no knowledge of the industry, I was like, "What? Like, you're the distillery? I thought that's what you're supposed to do, right?" So but I
Yeah.
didn't tell this guy this. I was like, "Okay, thank you." And in my mind, I was like, "Well, if I got to get the juice, then what I need you for? I'm going right to the source." So I started googling distilleries in Mexico, and I reached out to a few, and one of them came. A few of them came back kind of quickly, and so I'm talking to them like, "Look, me and my brother, we want to start a brand. This is what we're trying to do." Da 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 da. And the distillery was like, "Yeah, we can help you out with that. We can help you." And I was like, "What?" So we set up a call, and I'm talking through what we wanted, and they was like, "Yeah, we can help you with everything." And so I was like, "All right, thank you." I'm in Ocean City with my wife and family on the boardwalk. I'll walk away from them to call my brother. I was like, "Bro, we can do this." He was like, "Yeah, bro, but whatever you want to do." And I was like, No, you don't understand me. Like, I just got off the phone with the distillery. Like, we can really do this." And he was shocked. He was just like, "Okay, bro, like, I'm with you. If you're gonna do it, then I'm with you." And it was like once we got that verification that it can be done, the bar of entry wasn't like something phenomenal. I was like, "Oh, this is no question. We're in. I'm in." And he'll tell the story like before he realized it, I'm having him sign a bunch of documents. November 2020, we're sitting down in Tequila at the
Wow.
distillery. Like it was like
That's an
that fast.
amazing story, man. Goodness. Like I said, I applaud you. I don't know if I could have done it. I applaud you. That's a great story, man. So your wife is on board, your brother's on board. How did your other family members take to the story when you told them, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna go start a brand, a liquor brand"?
Right. I tell people all the time. I said at that time I might have had like
Mm.
400 Facebook friends, right? And I'm telling everybody, we're going to start Tequila Brand. We're going to do it, right? And I create a page and I'm telling people, I probably had like 4 people like the page. I send it out to everybody, right? And I'm telling people, but again, I don't take things personal because if you remember back in 2020, everybody said they were
Right.
starting some kind of business, right? Like everybody's doing something. So I was like, okay, cool. Wait till you see it. And people were like, "Oh, y'all starting to kill? Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Da da da." And my brother, he was kind of getting a little frustrated because people wasn't taking it serious. And I was like, "You know what? It don't matter. When they see it, you'll see the difference." And so when we went to Mexico and we started posting pictures from down there in 2020, people was like, "Oh,
Right.
like they really down it. They really doing it." Now here come all the likes. Here come all the friend requests from people I ain't talked to since high school, right? Like now it's like, yeah, like we was really doing it. So then people was just like, wow, like after that initial thing, people were just like, I can't believe y'all did it. You know, congratulations and da da da. And I was just like, for me, it's a thing. Was like at that time, of course. I mean, now we know there's a lot of black-owned different spirits companies in all kind of categories. But for us, back in 2020, we didn't know anybody out there. I think that we might have been aware of like 2 or 3, period. Right? So, you know, again, nobody we knew, so we're doing something nobody we knew ever done before. So that excited me. That's what I was like, yeah, let's go do something phenomenal. Like, I don't want to have my whole life be me working in a cubicle until I retire, right? Like, and that was the thing of my life. Like, no, I'm going to go out there and do something phenomenal. Like, and, you know, so I was all in, like, full steam ahead. We're figured out. We just pressed. So people really, you know, to this day, a lot of people was like, no, I'm so proud of you guys. I can't believe you guys did it. You know, people sometimes get people who don't know. It was like, hey, we're really proud of you guys. Like, you guys really did something. You know, it's like, okay, when you're in it, you're just like, you know, okay. But from people on the outside looking, you know, they can see something different.
So your first bottle of product is done in 2020. That's in 2020, right? Or 2021? No?
No, I wish. It took 9 months to get our first product. Now, this is the part I want people to understand. Because people are like, I can't believe you came so long this way. I was like, listen, we've only got here because I had a good system around me. Because in that 9 months, I was so frustrated. I was getting ready to call the distillery, like, listen, give me my money back. Y'all can keep it. Like, this is crazy. Like, we invested a lot of money in this, and it's taking this long. And my brother was like, bro, like, no, what are you doing? Because at that time, I didn't have any patience. Like, if I go to a store and the line is long, I'm out of there. I'm not even going to wait. Drive through the same thing. Like, and so that 9 months, that was really humbling. And, you know, down there, some people work on their own time. They don't work, you know, on your time. And so it's different. And you have to adjust to the industry. And it was like, we went there in November 2020. We didn't get our first product until August of 21.
So August 21, you get your first bottle. And let me guess, y'all got the bottle, you're looking at it, and you're like, yeah, we about to be popping bottles. I'm going to go get the black Bentley, you get the white Bentley. Is that how it happened?
Not at all. We were on the grind when we were, because we were out at an event. We got it was like been, I think, like Thursday or Friday. No, it was like Thursday. And the importer had called me and says, hey, your shipment came in. And I go get my brother. I was like, oh my God, it came in. We got to go tomorrow to pick it up. He was like, yo, I don't know if I get off work. Man, listen, call in sick. You got to do something. Like, we're going to get this. Like, and so Friday, we ride up to Philly to the warehouse. We grab it. We're coming back down the road. And I'm like, yo, call your friend. Because my brother has a friend who owned a liquor store in Baltimore. And I'm like, yo, call to John, see if he can put it in there. So my brother gets on the phone with the guy. And the guy was like, you know, my brother explained to him, we got our first shipment, we're coming down the highway, when he put us in the store. And the guy was like, yeah, as long as you got your license, you know, stuff, you got your papers, sure. So cool. We swap places in the car. I'm emailing this guy. We get off the highway, pull right up to his store, pop the trunk, we go in there, you know, he check out all the paperwork again, cut us a check for 2 cases, 1 and 1. Good enough. We don't even care. Just to say it's in there. He put it up behind the glass. We get on Instagram Live. Hey, we out here. We forgot our first cases, yada, yada, yada. Man, 15 minutes, people pulling up. Skirt. People buying bottles. And then people start buying cases. Now, the guy, he come back out to us. Mind you, I'm sitting here with probably about 10 cases in my trunk. Like, so the guy come there, check 2 more cases. All right, bet. Another 1 and 1. Sell him out. He back out there. Come on, man. Like, you see people coming. He reluctantly wrote a check like 3 and 3. And that's how we started. Like, we wasn't thinking about getting big. And to honestly tell you the story, when we decided to do this brand, we didn't decide it because we wanted to get rich or we thought we were going to be famous. We started this brand because we thought it would be super dope to sit around at our own family functions or, you know, cookouts and things like that with our own tequila. Everybody drinking our own thing. And that was the motivation. Right? Like, but it was just once we got to social media, because of course, you know, we're excited, so we're sharing it, and we've seen the reaction from other people, then it was like, oh, this might actually be something, not just, because, you know, for me, at that time, mission accomplished was getting the product in my hand. if I never sold a case, I wouldn't care because it was just somebody. I had an idea, and in less than damn 2 years, right? It went from having an idea to did something nobody we knew ever done. So it was mission accomplished. But to like at the time, again, we had no idea what tequila was as a category, and that was where people were going. So, it was really a lot of luck involved. I tell people all the time.
So you have this tequila, you sold a few cases, you kind of can see the trajectory to some degree that you could go down. At what point did you look at the brand and say, we really do have something here that can be a lot more than me selling 5 or 6 cases at a time? You know what I mean? When did that cross your thought process, and what does success ultimately look like for you?
Right. Yeah. So honestly, that thought never crossed my mind, or I never fully accepted
Wow.
it. Probably until a year later, because in my mind, right, like we have no idea what we're doing. We're just out here having fun. So in my mind, at any given time, the bottom could fall out under this thing. So my philosophy was just enjoy it while you're here, enjoy the process, and let's go. But it was people in the industry who've been in this industry 10, 20 years were pulling me to the side and was like, you really have something here. You really have the potential to be a big brand. And it was like I think the third time I've heard that from a person, from like a third independent person. That's when it was kind of like, you know what? If people inside this industry with a lot of experience keep telling me this, then right, like this might actually be something. I was like, okay. So it was just like, what? Almost a year in that we went from just having fun to, all right,
A
let's
lot
get
of
serious about the
people,
business.
especially now, so entrepreneurism is very hot right now. Everybody wants to be a boss. Everybody wants to be an owner. A lot of people don't know the cost of being a boss and being an owner, but everybody thinks it's cool to be it, right? And let's talk about some of those costs, and especially in the alcohol industry. Is it cheap? Is it cheap to get into this field? How did you guys fund I should say the operation getting started?
Right. To answer the first question, no, it's absolutely not cheap at all. And I think again, because we didn't have any experience, we thought about it the way traditional products work. Where okay, if I go buy 5 cases, I'll sell those, get my money, and I'll go back and buy 10, and I'll just keep flipping and keep growing. That's not how this industry works. This is a intensive industry. You really have to front load if you want to be successful, if you want to go anywhere, right? So that's the lesson we had to learn the hard way. But I mean, work wise, like, listen, it sounds great on social media that you're the boss, you're the CEO, you're the founder. Well, what that really entails is that you're working 15, 16, 17 hours a day. When your friends are home, watch binge a Netflix series, you're here trying at your desk or at your table trying to keep your eyes open getting through these next couple spreadsheets because you got stuff to do. And in the beginning, because also with us, which I found out later, we were all, or I won't generally speak for anybody else. For us, we really bootstrapped it, right? So we're putting this together. So there's no staff in the beginning. We are the staff, right? We are the people. So everything that got to get done, it's falling on us to get it done. Now, being in this business space for a while, and always taking in outside information, I was listening to this podcast called Masters of Scale, and it's about the tech industry. And they talk to CEOs from Facebook, LinkedIn, Indeed, all these people. And what they tell the story is when they got started, they went out and did fundraising first. Till they raised a certain amount of funds, then they went to the business. And and hearing that, and I was like, you know what? That never even crossed my mind in the beginning, right? Like I had no idea even how this VC space worked or this capital, finance space worked in the beginning. So it's just it's that knowledge base, having exposure to different things. But yeah, even still, like we almost 2 years in, just got to a place where we could hire an admin person, and I'm still out here plugging away, 16, 17 hours a day, easy. Like that's just become normal now. And the other costs, and I'll finish with this. that people don't really anticipate is you have to be on the road a lot. If you have a family, if you have a wife, you have kids, you got a dog, understand you're going to spend a lot of time away from them. This business requires a lot of face-to-face interaction. So you're out visiting your accounts, whether you're out doing tastings or you're out trying to get new business, you have to be out on the road. And there's always events that people want you to come show up in as the owner. Like, so there's a lot of time that you're going to have to spend away from your house. So that's, I think, another cost that people don't really anticipate what that looks like, what
Yeah,
that cost is really going to
I've
cost you in your
read
whole life.
studies and seen things, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing. When people talk about getting into business or starting businesses, they always tell you be careful about going into business with your family for a number of reasons, right? Because we might be brother, sister, father, son, husband, wife, whatever the case may be. But when the work comes down the pipe, it's partner, boss, whatever the case may be. And sometimes people have a hard time with playing in that space. How have things been? First, so number one, how has the partnership with your brother been? And number two, when times get rough, because we know there's always times where things get a little rough, how have you guys been able to keep the business and keep, your family?
Right. And the way I would explain to people is when you get into business with somebody, understand that this is a marriage, right? Like, it's not if it don't work out quick, then you out. Like, no. There's a lot of paperwork that's going into this. This is a marriage. So that person that you're partnering with, your wife, your brother, your husband, understand that the dynamic that you have is not going to change because of business. So if you're doing in the relationship that you have, if you're always the one who has to call them to, hey, get up, come on, let's go be here, understand you're going to have to do that in the business, right? Or vice versa. If you're always the one being called on to do something, right? Because, like you're
Mm-hmm.
always the one to late to show up, you're not going to change because you're in business. You are who you are, right? And so people, I think, always have these aspirations going into relationships because honestly, that's what being a business partner is. It's a relationship that, if we do this person is going to change this way or this person is going to change. Like, don't count on that. Count on the person being the person who they are. And so my brother and I, we've never had to work together on anything before this. So it was, going to be a learning curve for both of us. One, both of us never been in business before. And two, we've never had to work on anything together. So, we kind of set the rules of the road. Like, all right, listen, regardless of whatever happened with this business, if it takes off, if it crashes and burns, we're still going to be brothers at the end of the day. So we have to come into this thing that we always kind of be respectful when we talking to each other, right? Like, it's people. So there's always going to be something that comes up where it might be an unpleasant conversation or it might be something that's rubbing you the wrong way or whatever, whatever. But, as in any relationship, you just got to be respectful of how you talk to somebody. And, like you kind of have to take, what we do, like you had these timeouts. Like, stuff ain't going right. All right, let's have a timeout. Let's have a sit down. Let's talk about, what's going on, what the expectations are, what the expectations should be, or whatever. So it's like keeping that communication. And I think once you establish kind of rules of the road and what the expectations are, it's easier to manage that relationship, right? But I think you see it all the time. Like, it doesn't matter if it's music, it's business. People get partners and everybody loves it. Then partners break up and people are like, oh man, I can't believe it, right? But especially when you're starting something new, it's so critical to kind of set these rules of the road going
So when
in.
you bump heads,
That'll help
you're
you,
going into
kind
an
of navigate
understanding.
the
Look,
spaces.
I know who he is. I know who I am. This isn't personal. Even though we're in business, it's just he is who he is. I am who I am. We'll figure this out and we'll keep it moving. It's kind of like that.
Definitely like that. Like, yeah, because, at the end of the day, like I said, regardless of whatever happened with the business, still gonna be my brother. Like, he's the only brother I got, right? And I'm the only brother he has. So, you know, we're always gonna be family, and never want to get to a place where as though the something went wrong in the business and now the families ain't speaking, right? Because we both got nieces and nephews and and two sisters, right? That's always there. So, yeah, I mean, just try to, before you ever get to a point where things get too far gone, you got to adjust the situation. Like, just like in any relationship, whether you're dating somebody, whether you're married, right? Like, you know what pushes your buttons, or you know what kind of make you grind your teeth a little bit, but
Yeah.
you gotta let the other person know. Like, you can't assume that they know how you're feeling, because like assumptions are always go wrong. So keeping that channel of communication open. And I came to brother a lot of times, like, listen, even though we're doing this, right, like, I don't ever want to, whatever happens, I don't ever want you to be in a space where you feel like you see me doing something wrong, or you don't like a move that I'm making, and you can't come say something. Like, put my feelings, what you think my feelings are going to be to the side. If you see something, like, I want to always give you that space to be able to come back and tell me you think I could do something better, or I'm not doing something right.
You went through all this to get to this point right now, the chat right now. Tell us about the brand. Tell me about Los Hermanos. Where did the name come from? And tell me about your tequila.
Yeah, so brand Los Hermanos 1978. Los Hermanos meaning the brothers in Spanish, and the name honestly came from when we were sitting around. I was trying to think of a name that would capture that familial vibe, like, because that's why we got into this thing. For the three of us sitting around having that family time, and it was like, okay, we need a name, and I didn't want something that was like super hard to pronounce. I didn't want anything that sounded kind of like a fad or trendy. And I was looking at my brother, and I was like, we need a name. And I was like, I couldn't think of nothing. Nobody else could think of something. And I keep looking at my brother like, all right, we got to get something. And it just came to me. It was like, looking at him, it was like the brothers. Like, at one point in time, me and my brother almost looked identical, even though we're 7 years apart. And so people would see him like, hey, where's your brother? Or they see me, where's your brother? So I was like, the brothers. What's the brothers in Spanish? Los Hermanos. I was like, hey, I like that. Los Hermanos. So that's where the name came from. It means the brothers. But it's not just him and I. It's about brotherhood and sisterhood in general. That found family, right? Like, that bonding. That's what Los Hermanos is about. 1978, that's the year I was born. That's the year we became brothers. So again, everything about the brand is all about that familial vibe, whether it's your blood family or your found family. Tequila, I think it's been said, we have phenomenal tequila. Like, and I catch a lot of flack because I don't tell people my tequila is great, right? Because in my mind, as an owner, that's what you're supposed to say. You're supposed to say your juice is good, your juice is best. But, in less than 2 years, people can see
Congratulations.
we have 250 locations, Maryland, D.C., Delaware. We're, thank you. We're the official tequila Chesapeake Employees Insurance Arena. We just got invited to set up a booth at Jazzy Summer Nights, right? Like, you don't see any other brands out there with their own branded tent. We got an event next week with the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce, and all these things were things that people reached out to us. Says, hey, we love your tequila. We like you become part of this. We want to partner with you on this. So I think shout out to Alex Perez from Poppy's Cuisine. I think he said it best this weekend. He was like, let your work speak for itself. Like, you don't have to go out there and say you're the best or say you're great. Let your work speak for it. And so I think, we've done a really good job with the packaging, with the branding, and just that phenomenal juice, and I think that's part what's bringing, us.
That's dope, man.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. What does, I'm going back to this question I asked you a while ago because I want to see if we can nail something on this one. What does success look like for you? And I don't care about, I'm not doing the interview question like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You can put whatever time horizon on it that you want, but ultimately, where do you want to be with this brand?
So ultimately, I want to make this thing a legacy brand. And so what I tell people is, because the way my mind works, it's always about association, right? Like, it wasn't until I saw people that look like us to even let me know that I could do this. And even though it's comparing apples to oranges, I see what Fawn Weaver has done down in Shelbyville, Tennessee, with Uncle Nearest. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want to grow this thing to the point where, as though we have a full staff and we can afford to pay people and we can afford to do things. So when we're in a space that it's not just, okay, me and my brother, we're taking a salad and we have an admin, like, that's cool, right? But that's just a beginning. But when we're in a place that we have this thing growing big enough that we can do for other people outside of the company,
on your way,
then
Donta.
to me,
You're
that's when
definitely
you're
on your way,
successful.
my man. Before we wrap up, it's a little game that I like to play. and it's a simple game, so it's nothing too challenging. But it's called Here's One of My Favorites. Doesn't have to be your absolute favorite, but here's one of my favorites, right? And first thing that comes to your mind, it's no right or wrong answers, all right? Here's one of my favorite brands, and it doesn't have to be an alcohol brand. Any brand. Here's one of my favorite brands.
Ooh, one of my favorite brands. So I like sweets. So C's candy, like their peanut butter, that's my absolute favorite, like across the board. So yeah, I like C's.
Movies.
The Matrix. Like my mind was blown. I can still remember The Matrix is the first movie I've ever seen twice in a theater. Like it just blew my mind at 20 something to see The Matrix. So
here's one of my favorite leaders.
One of my favorite leaders was Malcolm X, and it was not because of the way people think, right? Because for me, it was the transformation that happened to him when he went to Mecca. He was a firebrand going in, right? And he could stand his ground with anybody. But when he went to Mecca, he was humbled enough to see where some of his shortcomings was, and he was able to suck that up and come back and say, let me be a better person. And he came back and apologized to all the people that I said bad things about, right? And it was like, that takes a lot when you're in that public eye and you're that high a person that you've known worldwide.
Here's one of my favorite qualities in a person, in a person I meet or a person I'm around. Here's one of my favorite qualities in a person.
Approachability. I think that's one thing for me that always let me know, who I'm going to talk to. I'm not like, if people make their stuff approachable, like I think from there, then it's always on. But people are all at all different stations. Some people just are approachable and some aren't. And so, just like you might be a really good person, but if you don't present yourself as approachable, people will never know it.
Here's one of my favorite things about myself.
Work. Like, that's one thing about myself. You'll never find somebody that'll outwork me. Like, regardless if anything that I'm involved in got my name in, I'm going to give you them a 10 on effort. Like I'm going all the way in and to put it out there and make sure we do something good. So
I applaud you guys and maybe the best part, maybe I'm so jaded because I know everything that can go wrong. So I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys chose to do this, but that's amazing that you did it and you're here and you got a great product. I think it's one of those ones where we want to be on the lookout for you. And something else that I always say, and I mean this, is it's great to like it. It's great to say you appreciate a brand, but go support that brand with your dollars, right? So people need to go out, spend some dollars, enjoy it, bring it to their friends and families, and really talk about these brands that are out there. Because there's a lot of great brands out there. Some of them you aren't as familiar with as others, but give them a try, and I think you might be pleasantly surprised. And I'm sure Los Hermanos is definitely one of those that you'll be pleasantly surprised about. So, Donta, I appreciate you, my friend. If there's ever anything that I can do to support you on this journey, I'm here, and I'm looking for you at the top.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. I definitely appreciate you reaching out. And again, we're in the same industry. We'll see each other.
Tell everybody where they can find you. Give them your socials and the websites and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find us online at tequila, loshermanos.com. You can also find us on IG at Los Hermanos Tequila. Facebook, Twitter, it's all the same. We're everywhere. So make sure you go down there, follow us on IG.
Look, Donta, I appreciate you. And until next time, my brother. Cheers.